Welcome back to the Metro. I'm Tia Graham, and we are celebrating the Metro's 1-year anniversary and listening back to some of our favorite shows from the last year. I'm super excited about it, Robin. 1 year.
I'm super excited about it, too. And that means, what, hundreds of conversations.
At least over 800. So that's amazing.
Well, let's listen back to one of them. Creating a catchy jingle, that is an art form. And today we are going to go back to a conversation we had with the executive music producer for Donor Advertising. That's John Mosier. He's also the host of Modern Music on WDET Saturdays, 4 to 6 p.m. He brought his encyclopedic knowledge of commercial jingles on the Metro. And this conversation, it's kind of been stuck in our heads ever since.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
Flop, fizz, fizz. Ooh, what a really fit is. Alka-Seltzer. Alka-Seltzer.
You're stuck on being a brand whose band is stuck on me.
Nationwide is on your side.
Connected for free with Education Connection. Get connected for free.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I am so excited to get into these jingles. Education Connection?
Oh my goodness.
My goodness.
We went through the years there.
Yeah, you did.
These jingles, they stick with you. That's because crafting one of these short tunes was at one point a craft in and of itself. That time has since passed. Popular songs are now the standard for advertisements, but the musicians who made that work are responsible for some of the most indelible commercials. So today we're diving in deep to learn more about how this distinct art form has evolved over time. We'll even talk to the musician who is responsible for an iconic Detroit jingle. Plus, we'll be revisiting some of your favorite jingles. Is there a jingle you can't get out of your head? Do you even like catchy jingles to begin with? Call us at 313-577-1019 and let us know.
Joining us in the studio now is John Mosier. He is a curator of new music and emerging artists on his show, Modern Music, right here on WDET. He's also the executive music producer for Donor Advertising, which has worked on brands like Chrysler, Tylenol, and the UPS store, to name a few. John, welcome to the Metro in a different capacity than you're used to.
Yeah, I'm wearing a different hat. It feels good. By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the How Many Licks Does It Take was Donor. That was one of Donor's classic ads. Yeah, Donor's been around for about 88 years. And How Many Licks Does It Take? Timex takes a licking and keeps on ticking. A lot of iconic ads. And you know, when I was a kid, my brother had a certificate in his bedroom. He guessed how many licks. Yeah, so he
No.
How
Did
many?
he really?
Oh, I don't remember.
But he got it right?
Yeah, he got it right.
Oh, that's
I mean,
that's
I'm
a
sure,
cool story.
I'm sure, Tia, a lot of kids got it right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you open the wrapper and there was a contest. And yeah, so when I was a kid, I remember that certificate being on his wall that he guessed how many licks it took to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop. And now I work for the ad agency that created that campaign.
Full circle.
Isn't that funny?
Jinx, double jinx.
Yeah.
So, John,
Yeah.
Definitely heard a number of commercial jingles, had a bunch of them stuck in my head. They're earworms, but as we understand it, that was literally the goal of a jingle. What makes a jingle so catchy?
Well, I think, in advertising, any sound, whether it's music or whether it's a sound design sort of element, anything can have a role that has a positive association with the brand. It can make it memorable. It can, obviously create preference, build trust. It can end up increasing sales. So if you have some kind of positive musical identification or association with a brand, that can do nothing but help the brand. So, the jingle started, that very first jingle was, I think, 1926. It aired on Christmas Eve, and it was a jingle for Wheaties. And that was in the radio format. So the format between content, creative content, and advertising was kind of blurred. we hadn't quite figured out how to make radio such an efficient tool for advertising. So the advertising format was a little more long form. So they created an entire song. What would get people's attention on the radio but this happy little jingle singing about the benefits of eating Wheaties, right? So that was the very first jingle. It was a barbershop quartet.
Which is
that created that jingle.
So interesting. We're going to play that jingle right now.
Have you tried Wheaties? They're whole wheat with all of the bran. Won't you try Wheaties? For wheat is the best food of man. They're crispy and crunchy the whole year through. The kiddies never tire of them, and neither will you. So just buy Wheaties, the best breakfast food in the land.
All right.
Kiddies never tire of them.
And neither will you.
And neither will you.
And John, I love the fact that in my mind, I'm seeing the quartet singing this song, and then it was probably weird to hear it because it was the first one that occurred at that time. But now it seems so normal to hear folks singing about a product.
Yeah. I think there was a heyday for the jingle. I think we've certainly passed that over the past maybe 50 years. The jingle is sort of went out of favor. But there was a time when jingles permeated advertising. When you think about Toys R Us and I Don't Want to Grow Up, and you think about the classic Coke, I Want to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony, and you think about Band-Aid, which we heard earlier, written by Barry Manilow. By the way, we work at Donor with our client Kenview, which they have Band-Aid, and they've recently brought back the Band-Aid song some 60 years later with one of the actresses. She was a little kid singing that in a commercial in the 70s, and they brought her back wearing a similar outfit, singing the classic Band-Aid song. Yeah, so, Plop, Plop, Fizz, Fizz, and My Buddy, and one of my favorites is Big Red. That Big Red freshness lasts right through. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. Folgers we heard, Oscar Mayer, My Baloney Has a First Name. I mean, these are iconic, and yeah, we heard those, and you instantly associate that song with that brand, and what do? You walk away when you're not watching TV and you hear those songs and you sing them to this day.
I know.
Every now and then, the Oscar Mayer song or something
Mentos
pops into my head.
Yeah, Mentos
randomly.
is in my head
The
right
Fresh
now.
Maker.
Yes.
Isn't that funny?
I know. It's my mind is still stuck on Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
So we're going to get
Right.
back to that in a moment. But we think about the formula of making a good jingle and making it something that's catchy. Did we see the industry follow the blueprint that Wheaties had set up for the rest of the industry?
Yeah, I think, that was certainly what is considered the first jingle. But yeah, just about every brand during a particular period of time had a jingle. Some of the big brands that I mentioned, and then locally we have some legendary ones. I know you're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but when you think of father and son construction, you think my favorite is, hey, dog, me and dog want you to go to Telegraph Road. Remember that
Right
one?
now, get a good deal.
Yeah. It was really just about every brand had a jingle, and that was the way that you advertised. And things changed, after 50 years or something like that, but they were ubiquitous.
You're listening to the Metro on 101.9 WDET. Our guest is John Mosier. He produces music for advertisements and hosts WDET's show Modern Music. We're talking about the evolution of music in advertising, and that's exactly where we want to steer this conversation. Can you tell us, John, how jingles have been produced throughout time? What are the major eras of jingle music production, and what makes them distinct?
Well, I think, for the most part, back in the day, in the golden age of the jingle, you had jingle writers. These were people that specifically for a career would write jingles. They were songwriters, and that was their craft. They were professional jingle writers. Now, they still exist, certainly, but we don't use jingles in advertising the way that we used to. I think certain things changed, and I don't know if you want me to get into that yet or not, how sort of the jingle evolved. But there were several factors. I think that one thing that happened was commercials were shorter, and you didn't necessarily have time to deliver the message that you wanted to deliver with the impact that you needed to deliver it in the amount of time that you had. And so a full song, or a mini song in a jingle, you wouldn't necessarily have time for. I think also the format at a certain point seemed dated. The jingle seemed like something from the 50s, right? And so it sort of fell out of favor because of that. But interestingly, what I think happened too is there was a shift in the music industry about preceding me working in advertising. I've been in advertising 18 years now. But before I got there was a major shift in the music industry, as we know, because of the digital music revolution. So people weren't making money selling records anymore. So the people that administer the rights to license music were saying, hey, we can make money licensing our music for films, as we always have, and television, and certainly that increased. But there was an increased concerted effort to license music for advertising. And I think that changed the art of advertising, because you think back 20 years ago or something, there were brands like VW, Apple, that suddenly were using really great songs. Either they were big artists and iconic songs that were being licensed that maybe would have been untouchable prior to that period, but people were willing to license them to advertising to make money, or they were unknown indie artists. Apple was doing a lot of that. Volkswagen pulled out the Nick Drake Pink Moon song, which was something here on public radio. We knew about Nick Drake, but all of a sudden we were flabbergasted seeing Nick Drake on a TV commercial. So I think that changed the art of advertising as well. And so you have this combination. These record labels, publishers are putting people in what they call the sync department, and essentially these are salespeople that will pitch their catalog to people like me, music producers and advertising, to try and get it licensed. You have the art of advertising changing at the same time, and suddenly people were attracted to brands like Apple and Volkswagen and other brands were doing. So they wanted really cool indie artists, or they wanted to license a David Bowie song or something really big to make a big splash. So music changed in how it's used in advertising. It went from the jingle to what has been really sort of the approach now, which is licensing a song, an actual song.
That's really interesting that jingle writing was a pathway for some popular artists to get their start in music.
I'll tell you, locally, there's some that, like I said a minute ago, just randomly pop into my head. You know what one of them is? Gardner White Furniture, we're known by the money you keep. It's something about that melody. And again, in the world of advertising music, we would call that sticky, right?
Yeah.
There's something about that do 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 boop 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 do do do, right? There's that melody that's just like, man, that just pops in your head and it stays there. And they don't even use that anymore, and it will randomly pop into my head.
I'm wondering nowadays, popular music is really catchy. And with the advent of social media apps like TikTok, even a short 15-second snippet of a song can get you kind of hooked. It can just permeate your brain. Could the formula for jingles back in the day somehow be the inspiration for a lot of these songs that we're hearing now?
Yeah, perhaps so. I mean, I think the idea with the jingle, if you sort of look at the back end engineering of it, is to find a melody, find a hook. I think sometimes it's less often about the words that might be in the jingle, it's that melody. They want to find the melody, the combination of notes that's really going to stick with you. And you may walk away hearing a jingle and you can't remember what the brand is, which means it's not the greatest jingle, but you remember that melody. And then you hear that melody again, and then you begin to associate it with that brand. Bingo, that's what you've done. So yeah, I think, the very art of doing it is to find the magic melody.
John Mosier is the executive music producer for Donor Advertising. He's also the host of Modern Music on WDET, Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m.
Coming up on the Metro's 1 anniversary show, winter in Michigan. The shorter, darker, colder days are nothing new. But who says we can't find new ways to enjoy the season? We'll reflect on what it means to connect and build community during this time. Stay with us. It's the Metro on WDET.